In today's video, I want to talk about a recent decision of the WRC in a sexual harassment case. It was actually a case that we brought on behalf of a client, and it involved the sexual harassment of a catering assistant in a particular catering establishment. But in the heat of the hunt, we were very pleased with the decision of the WRC because the adjudicator awarded 18 months salary, 30,000 euros to our client. The background to the case was that the complainant in question had been working in the workplace for quite some time and had experienced sexual harassment, comments and innuendo and essentially inappropriate conduct of a sexual nature towards her. It climaxed, however, on one particular day when she alleged that the harasser had pinched her on the bottom. The complainant took exception to this, and it affected her quite badly. It affected her so badly, in fact, that she was unable to go back to work after the particular incident and having gone to see her doctor. She did make a complaint in the workplace about sexual harassment, and the employer carried out an investigation. Part of the investigation involved quite an extensive interviewing of a number of witnesses. Many of the witnesses actually gave evidence which would have corroborated or supported the allegation that the particular individual was prone to harassing behaviour, especially of the female worker. However, the outcome of the investigation was essentially that the employees go back into the workplace, that they be given some guidance or a reminder about their responsibilities, and that was pretty much that. My client wasn't happy with this, and who could blame her? So we brought a claim on her behalf to the WRC for discrimination under the Employment Equality Act 1998, specifically sexual harassment over a period of time. And we named the employer as the respondent because the employer under the Act is vicariously liable for what goes on in the workplace. In this particular instance, our case was founded not on the employer not having policies or procedures in place, because they did. It wasn't founded on them failing to carry out an investigation, because they did. It was founded on our argument that the findings of the investigation were perverse, illogical, and flew in the face of the facts, flew in the face of common sense. Moreover, the investigators appeared to impose a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, when in fact the standard that should be applicable in an employment situation is on the balance of probability. Was the story that my client told on the balance of probability true? That was the standard, but that wasn't the standard that was applied. Now, in the course of the investigation, a number of other witnesses, other employees were brought in, and they gave evidence that was damning of the person against whom my client had made the complaint. So our position was very straightforward. The findings of the investigation, the conclusion, was essentially wrong. It was irrational, it was perverse, and could not be arrived at by any reasonable person looking at the evidence and looking at the facts. Now, the employer has, when it comes to the WRC, or indeed any claim in relation to discrimination, has a defence. And the defence is that either A, they took reasonable steps to prevent it from happening again, or B, they took steps to reverse the consequences of the harassment. In this particular case, we were arguing that this defence was not open to the employer because, notwithstanding the fact that they had policies and procedures in place, It's simply not good enough that you have procedures or policies in place if you end up arriving at an irrational and perverse conclusion. Secondly, we said that the option of or that defence wasn't open to them, because in terms of reversing the effects of the harassment, we said the employer didn't do enough there either, because essentially my client was being offered to be transferred somewhere else, when in fact my client was the victim. So the adjudicator essentially agreed with us, agreed with our position, accepted that the employer didn't do enough, that the response was inadequate, and found in our favour. So the WRC agreed with our position that the findings of the investigation were perverse and irrational, and basically that the employer avoided the responsibility to take the appropriate action, found that the findings of the investigation that was carried out were contrived and evasive, and an external investigator could have led to a more balanced and reasonable outcome. The adjudicator also found that the evidence of the manager did not stand up, that's the person against whom the allegation was made, and that the standard of proof that was required beyond reasonable doubt was unfair, and it should have been a civil standard of proof on the balance of probability. And the adjudicator made the point that sexual harassment is as much about power as about sex, and the harasser's intention was to humiliate the complainant and retrieve for himself some of the power that he felt she possessed. He may have felt a little bit threatened by what he perceived to be the power that she held in the workplace by reason of her long service and so on, and her strong personality. But the bottom line is, it's not enough for an employer to carry out an investigation or have procedures if it's only a box ticking exercise. It's not enough to go through the motions and arrive at, after carrying out an investigation, an irrational or absurd outcome or conclusion. And the WRC take sexual harassment and other types of discrimination very, very seriously. So if you're an employee and something of this nature has happened to you, then certainly there is methods by which and claims you can bring. Claim to the WRC is very straightforward. You do need to prove your case, obviously, but hope you find this video useful. If you do, you might give it a thumbs up down below. So I hope you find this video useful and that it might give you some guidance as to what can happen at the WRC. Obviously not all claims are going to succeed, and this particular claim led to an award of 18 months salary, and because it's a discrimination based claim, the award has been made without any deduction, as it were. In other words, it will be tax free. It's not like income in an unfair dismissal case, which is taxable. Discrimination based compensation payment is generally not taxable. So if this sort of video floats your boat and rings your bell, you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. I hope you find this one useful. It has been a little bit disjointed because I've obviously had to do it in 3 pieces, but I'm just finishing it up now, bank holiday weekend in October, bank holiday weekend. But the bottom line is, you might give it a thumbs up down below if you're interested in this sort of thing, if you're interested in Irish law, if you're interested in Irish business. If you find the video useful, you may be interested in subscribing to my YouTube channel. If that's the case, then just hit the subscribe button down below, and there's a bell icon there that you can click as well if you want to get notifications when I release a new video. And I release a new video every week, every Saturday morning at 7 o'clock.